Dad, you remember what you used to eat during the war and just after the war when there was rationing? You know, what kind of meals you used to eat. Can you tell me what you had in a kind of average day, like a school day?
Like a school day? Well, for breakfast we had cereal and we had milk because there was still plenty of milk and cereal and toast.
What kind of cereal did you have?
Well, it was wartime cereal, so I think it was wheat flakes or porridge. We had a lot of porridge, a lot of mornings. All the winter we'd have porridge. But it wasn't porridge like you have it now. My mother used to make it the night before and let it soak overnight in a double cooker and then warm it up in the morning for breakfast. And there wasn't very much sugar to have on it, so we usually just had it plain or sometimes with a little bit of salt. And occasionally, if there was golden syrup around, then we'd have a bit of golden syrup. But we'd never have sugar on it because sugar was used for other things.
Like in cakes and baking
yes,
and things like that, puddings.
Cakes and puddings. And then lunch, well, I always had lunch at school. We always had school dinners because I was going to school 8 miles away most of the time. And the school dinners were very, very plain. Very plain. I shall remember Monday mornings more than any other because it was always the same. It's probably the same every day of the week, each week, but Monday mornings was particularly bad because you used to have a slice of corned beef and chopped up beetroot and boiled potato, and then the pudding was plain semolina. And I think this was probably, it was so awful, this is one of the meals that I remember more than any other. One of the other puddings you used to have was what we used to call frog spawn, which was tapioca. You'd have that 1 or 2 days a week. And the other things then, we would have liver another day, lots of cabbage in the winter as the main vegetable. Swede would be the other vegetable we'd have in the winter. So those...
All those foods that weren't rationed at all?
None of those foods were rationed, no, so they were available to the school.
And what about snacks? Did you have many snacks in between meals?
No, I don't think we had snacks. There weren't any... I don't remember having biscuits very often. I think you could get them, but they were very plain. There were no chocolate biscuits. You didn't get. It was a very, very special treat to have a biscuit that had chocolate on it. Maybe at Christmas time or Easter. But I think there must have been bread. Yes, in the after tea, of course. When we were at home, we would have bread and dripping and salt, because again there wouldn't be enough butter to have more than, bread and butter more than a couple of days a week. So if you were hungry, you had bread and dripping on it.
Yeah. And what about in the evening? What kind of meals did your mum prepare?
I think we used to have cheese on toast in the evening. We'd have mince a lot. We'd have that was in and potato, but mainly it was sort of things like beans and cheese on toast. And then there'd be apples. We'd have stewed apple. Because we had an orchard, once the apples were in season over the winter, we would have apples, baked apple in its skin and stewed apple, that type of thing.
Yeah. And what about drinks? Because children now, they drink so many sweetened drinks. Did you have anything like that very often?
No, not
lemonade
during the war. No, during the war, it was squash. We had squash and also orange juice. There was a special sort of orange juice which you got on the National Health when you were young, and it was, and you'd water that down, so you'd have that rather than squash. And also there was rosehip syrup, because you could make rosehip syrup out of rose hips. Then that was also, we had quite a lot.
Yeah.
Milk, milk. There seemed to be plenty of milk, good ration of milk, so we could always have milk to drink.
Yeah. And what about birthdays? Was it difficult having a birthday cake and that kind of thing?
Birthday food? I don't remember ever having a birthday cake. I'm sure we did. But I think it would have been a sponge cake. A sponge cake with candles on. But I suppose as a child anyway, you don't really have fruit cakes, so I don't remember there being anything really. Christmas, yes. And Christmas was always special. And having a chicken was also very special. Sometimes we would go to my grandparents and on a Sunday, Sunday dinner, and then we would have a chicken, and that was very, very special. And because we kept chicken, so we always had eggs. Also, we had eggs at the weekend for breakfast, and because we kept chickens, and sometimes we'd kill one of our chickens and then have that. And I can remember my mother didn't like to kill the chickens, so a man would come round and he'd have this sort of big bar, and he'd just wring their necks over the bar. And we'd be up in the bedroom watching this happen, and they'd all be running round and squealing, and he'd go run and do it. That was always a special treat.
Yeah, and some people kept pigs, didn't they?
Yes, my aunt kept a pig, and that was twice she did that, and we had some of their bacon. And of course, it was absolutely fantastic bacon compared with the stuff that we were getting. But the really interesting thing about I used to do the shopping on Saturday mornings. After the age of about 8 or 9, I used to get on my bike and cycle into the town and do the shopping. And in the butcher's, we always used to go for a fatty joint. It was actually an advantage to have a fatty joint, because then there'd be lots of dripping to have during the week. I mean, completely different from now, when the last thing you wanted to have then, you were so limited in the amount of beef and fat you could get that you just wanted to have the fattest you could.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dad. That was really interesting.